Hello again. Welcome back to MustardHub Voices Behind the Build. These fireside chats are where I sit down for enlightening conversations with people building, backing, and running better workplaces. I'm your host, Curtis Forbes. I'm pleased to have Gabe Davis on Behind the Build today. Gabe Davis is an experienced account executive and storyteller with a demonstrated history of working in the software as a service industry. Currently, he's the strategic partner manager at Cinch, and he just so happens to have some past experience working for one of MustardHub's competitors. Not going to mention any names. He's based in Utah. I'm so happy that he's here with us today. Welcome to Behind the Build, Gabe. Thanks for joining me.
Curtis, great to be here. Real excited to chat with you, and love the industry that you're in. So always happy to comment on it.
Cool. So let's humanize you a little bit. Tell me some of the things before we jump in that you do for fun, and how did you get into this role in partnerships?
Yeah, great question. So far as fun, right now my wife is 34 weeks pregnant. She will be tomorrow. 34 weeks. So fun for me right now. Yes, it's super exciting. It's our first. And so right now, fun is painting nurseries, building cribs, just running around preparing for the baby. So that's taking up a lot of my mind space right now. But normally, I really like getting out. I'm a big golfer. Also, really like to play pickleball, which I know is kind of a controversial topic right now to have pickleball courts, exploding across the country and quiet neighborhoods now hearing the ping of a wiffle ball. But I like pickleball. Really like, also a big reader, book guy. So that's more or less my fun.
You're not going to have a lot of time for that. I do have to tell you, this is going to be one of the most fun and most rewarding journeys of your life. So I'm super excited for you. Congratulations to you and your wife. You have at least 7 to 8 years of baby jail ahead of you, but totally worth it. I'm sort of on the tail end of it, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. So how did you get into this role in partnerships?
Good question. So and you mentioned there some of my background, my resume. So I came out of my undergraduate, and there's a pretty good tech scene here in Utah. And I took a role at a startup that was in your same space, in the customer recognitions and reward space. And at the time, it was a really small company, 12 or so folks, and was just wearing all sorts of different hats, and ended up being recognized as somebody who could kind of tell a good story. And that led me to be in this account executive role. Not that I had searched it out or even knew what that type of role was. It turns out account executive is just a fancy word for somebody who does software sales. So I had that role for probably a year and a half. I took a year working. My next job was a year working as a foreign market entry advisor at World Trade Center, Utah, which is a really interesting job. More in the nonprofit government space, where we were helping local companies that wanted to get a strategy to go international, and plug in some resources for them. So that was a really great experience. It gave me some more, I'd say, analytical skills, but still kind of the storytelling, consulting, helping companies, which I really enjoyed. And then I decided I wanted to up my business chops, and I went back and got an MBA, and so I took a pause from working for those 2 years. And coming towards the tail end of my MBA career, I was presented with a couple different offers. I come Christmas time, and this is also a funny story that has to do with my wife. At the time, we were dating, and Christmas time, the winter break of your last year of your MBA is like crunch time. It's like if you don't have an offer yet, you're kind of in trouble. And I was lucky enough to have a couple offers, but nothing kind of felt right. So I said no to all of them, which was not advisable for somebody who's
risky.
somebody who's about to get married And, I was thinking like, oh, we're going to be going on a honeymoon come May, and looks like my wife might be having to pay for the whole honeymoon because I didn't have a job. And so I didn't take any of these offers that I had because they just didn't feel right. And then come March, April time, an investor of Cinch came into a class of mine and presented on it. They were looking for interns, and I kind of uh, after that after his presentation in my class, I like stalked him because I was so interested in what the software could do and I wanted to be a part of it. So I like immediately messaged him on LinkedIn. I think I friended him on Facebook. Like I was just like, hey, can you put me in contact with somebody at Cinch? Because I think I want to be a part of it and I don't really care what the role is. And so we had a little bit of back and forth, me and the investor, and he was like, well, are you sure they're really not looking for full time? They're wanting interns, or here's a different company that I know they're hiring. Why don't you go check there? But I said, no, I want to be part of this one. And so I said, I'll take any job. And so I ended up taking a job as an account executive, which I'd been doing as my first job post my undergraduate degree. So I'd kind of come back to being an account executive again. Not that that was a bad thing, but it wasn't necessarily what I'd gone to business school to do. But was really excited to jump on here. Again, it was very early on, tech startup at the time. I think there was 13 employees, and started out as an account executive and did that role for about 6 or 7 months, and then started to realize and also kind of raise my hand and say, I think there's a need for somebody who can run and help support our relationships with other businesses. Not our customers, but other services that work in our spaces, other technologies that work in the spaces that we service. And I was lucky to kind of get that offer, and our CEO Justin just kind of said, "Hey, go try to figure it out. Here's some guidelines, but kind of run with it." So I've been doing this role now for about 2.5 years. It'll be, I guess, 3 years in November that I've been doing partnerships here at Cinch. I really enjoy it because it's this good mix of still being customer facing, being able to tell stories, interacting with people, which I like to do. But there is a lot of strategy in it as well, and it's not just how do I get this quarter's quota figured out, or how do I finish up this deal. It's more long-term relationships, which I really enjoy forming, and it's a lot of strategy with other great companies and great services. So yeah.
That shows a lot of trust. I mean, you you definitely had to have shown them something in that 6 or 7 months to allow them, or to feel that they could allow you to take the reins with something like that, right? With those business relationships that they were building and forming, and just letting you run with it. So kudos to you on that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. I felt really, really lucky and trusted in that sense, and certainly partnerships as a function within this business was something our CEO saw as very important, and so I felt really, really blessed and lucky that he gave me the shot.
So one of the reasons I've been really looking forward to our conversation, like Mustard Hub, organization you work with, Cinch, all about data. So, really quickly, tell me about Cinch. What does the business do? Tell all of the listeners.
Yeah, so Cinch is a referred to as a CDXP. Now, some people might be familiar with CDP, which is a customer data platform. Cinch is this relatively new category of software, which adds an X to CDP. So the X is obviously experience. So it's a customer data experience platform. And the idea behind a CDXP is you've got a ton of customer data that lives in a ton of different places, in your point of sale, in your Google reviews, in a web form that's attached to a landing page that's on one of your digital ads. You've got data that might be from a new movers list that you purchase. There's all this customer data that lives in these different systems that aren't plugged together, that aren't talking to each other. Cinch's role, or CDXP's role, is to connect to those data sources and bring it all into one place. That's step one. And then clean and match that data and normalize it, which means you, Curtis, might go to a local business. Let's say you go to a grocery store or something, or let's say that you go to like or even if you have like a home service that you purchase, like you have someone come and do bug spray or mow your lawn. You might have data in their point of sale, but you also leave a 5-star review afterwards. And before you even had a purchase, you clicked on a digital ad and filled out your information. And your story with the brand is kind of is separated. It's dispersed across these sources. Cinch is going, oh, that Curtis who left that review is the same Curtis that made this purchase, is the same Curtis that came to us via this digital ad that he filled out a landing page on. So the bringing that data together and cleaning and matching it is a really key function of Cinch. But then having really the ability from there to segment that data and then use that segmentation for really targeted marketing campaigns that are omni-channel and automated. That becomes kind of the X in the CDXP, the experience, the marketing.
So, give me an idea. Who are you don't have to use specific names, but who are your customers? What problems are you really solving for them?
So I would say we're really heavy, and anyone can see this on our website. We're really heavy in the automotive space. So some of the really big named quick loop brands use Cinch, and a lot of big name full service automotive repair shops are using Cinch. Kind of the other industries that we currently play in are home services, so your pest control, your lawn services.
Makes a
We're
lot of
starting
sense.
we're starting to spread out more and more into general franchising. If you've got a multi-location business, you're much more likely to have dirty data or duplicate data that Cinch is going to be able to clean and match for you. So those are some of the spaces that we play in. We're also starting to get more and more involved in car wash. But to answer your second question, what solutions are we providing for these type of businesses? Well, if you think of your neighborhood quick lube, you might go to your corner street quick lube to get your oil changed, and you say, "My name's Curtis. Here's my car. They'll service it. You'll be on your happy way." 6 months later, you go to another location of that quick lube franchise. And at that location, they accidentally fat finger your name and spell Curtis with a K. That's a problem because now in their point of sale system, in their management system, they've got two Curtises. And there's going to be a couple problems that waterfall off of that. One being you're going to start getting two different sets of reminders with different spelling. So they're going to be overpaying to market to you. And number two, you're not going to feel a personal connection. This is supposed to be kind of a neighborhood shop. It's supposed to feel local. They're supposed to know your name. And you feel a little bit offended when there's Curtis with a K that shows up in your mailbox or your email or in a text message.
Nobody should be spelling it that way. I mean, we can all agree. But yes,
right. Wouldn't make sense. And I always use that example because this happened to me just in November. I was due for an admissions test, and my local shop sent me two mailers. One said Gabe and one said Gabriel. The rest of the whole mailer was the same. It said, your Subaru Crosstrek 2017 is due for admissions. Here's to 10% off. Come back in. It worked, right? The marketing worked. I came back in. I used the coupon. But they double spent on marketing to me. And I now feel like I'm kind of a number to them. I don't feel that unique personal relationship. So that's a big area that we're helping you with, which is cleaning that data before we do any marketing. I would say kind of a secondary, the really overarching goal is Cinch is helping you just retain your customers better, build better relationships through more strategic communication with your customers so that they're coming back. Just the overall goal is we want to help you better communicate with your customers to drive retention. That's just the quick catchphrase.
I love that. I think What's really interesting to me is that while Cinch and MustardHub, for example, do very different things, we're both, you know, about leveraging data in actionable way to drive some sort of alignment. We both help to engage actual humans in a way that drives better business outcomes and builds value. Um, I'd say that a lack of alignment between marketing and or sales and customers is a huge people problem, just a different one that we at Mustard Hub normally solve. So I'm curious to know, like, what other people problems do you see facing organizations today?
Yeah, so one that I think is actually very aligned with a service like MustardHub, we see a really big data collection problem. So if we sign up a new, let's say a new car wash or a new uh, home service lawn company, and we look at their database,
No.
there's maybe 10,000 customers on there. 50% of them they've got a phone number for. 10% of them they've got an email for. Because it's a home service, we get really good, like, maybe address count, right? They're close to 100% of their customers they've got an address from. But there's just not there's missed opportunities there when you're not collecting all the data points that you can. And one thing that we've seen some of our customers do, and this relates to a service like MustardHub, is how can we incentivize our frontline folks to try and collect some of this other data? And can we incentivize them with, extra gifts, extra perks, a spiff, or some more points on a MustardHub type service where they, if we as a shop or as a business or as a branch of the company hit X percentage of customers that we have an email, an address, and a phone number for, then we get X amount of points. So data collection is something that, from a business operations standpoint, is something that we see is a problem when you want to market, and training your team on that.
Yeah, and you had a really good example before, the name issue that you brought up as an example. We talk a lot about culture here. And most people problems, we see or can be identified and relate back to, often being culture problems rooted in some misalignment between leadership and their workers around expectations and values. Really, misalignment, I think, anywhere within an organization can be an obstacle to success and growth. And I can imagine it's an issue between organizations and its customers, right? Um, are these areas that often create less than ideal outcomes for businesses in terms of their customer relationships, particularly around customer satisfaction and repeat business?
Absolutely. And when you think about the places where we play, which is a lot of these multi-unit franchise model businesses, they all want to still feel like the neighborhood shop, right? Or the
Yeah.
neighborhood pest control company or the neighborhood car wash. And if you haven't trained your team on collecting good data and inputting good data, that's going to be a problem. Because if you're using a system that's going to market to your customers, that marketing is going to feel inauthentic. When you get Curtis with a K, or when I get Gabe and Gabriel, they are overspending, and I already mentioned this. They're overspending on us, and it's not feeling as personal, and that starts to hurt your customer retention numbers, because you're losing that personal touch that people actually care a lot about. And as our society continues to get more advanced and more automated, uh, the way to stand out is by still feeling personal, by still having that. And there's a lot of ways that we do that with customers beyond just ensuring that their data is cleaned and matched. We've got abilities through our partners to send, like, brownies to customers, and we've got a shop that set up a system where every time a customer spends over $500 in one repair, we send that customer a 2-pack of brownies that's branded with the company's logo. We've got another small business that's just a one location business where we've set up a connection with a robot that grabs a pen and hand writes a letter to your customers. And he's doing that for customers that have left, I think, 5-star reviews, and he's sending them out a nice letter. And so these ways to be more personal uh, are just a way to stand out in a world that's becoming less and less personal.
I absolutely love that. How do you think I'm sure people come to Cinch and there's a bunch of problems that Cinch can solve. How do you think an organization can get on track with its workforce to create alignment and consensus both internally and with its customer base, right? Which is primarily who, the problems that Cinch is looking to solve for. And is there anything you see working for your partners and customers, or for Cinch or a previous organization, to help that both internally and with the customer base?
Yeah, I'd say for one, you don't want to be messaging customers in ways that feel unnecessary to the customer. If you're going to send them an email, if you're going to send them a text message, if you're going to send them a mailer, have a good reason to do it.
Yeah.
And whether that's a promotion, whether that's a reminder. One thing also just on the topic of being impersonal, one thing that Cinch is really, really good at is identifying when are you really due for this reminder, whether that's you're due for an oil change or you're due for your next purchase of running shoes because based off of your usage, based off of your purchasing behavior, we can tell when your cycle is ready again to make another purchase. And so having a software like Cinch is really a way to address what we're talking about here, which is how do I normalize across the entire flow of my customer's journey? How do I normalize and automate stuff that's meaningful still, that's targeted still? And so that's one that I see as a big issue that we're addressing in terms of keeping that customer engagement ready and correct. Um, and then I'd say other things that we see are customers want to feel special, and customers will give you data if there's a trade involved there. If you ask me for my phone number and my email address and my physical address, you better be giving me something that's worthwhile. You better be giving me something that's personalized, or else that whole system breaks down. So a lot of this is about the strategy from the
Yeah.
company side, and then the execution is making sure that your folks on the floor on the front line feel incentivized to ask for those things, to put that data in correctly.
Let me ask you about that last part, um, because I think a lot of the outreach and a lot of the experience and a lot of the communication sounds like to some extent, again, just to some extent, it's transactional, right? The reminders, right, or a lot of which is built with automation, right? How do or how does employee happiness, right, or even discord really impact these customer relationships?
Yeah, so your frontline employees are your brand in a
Yeah.
lot of the services that a lot of the spaces that we service. My technician that's changing my oil, I don't know his name, but in my mind he is Bob's Quick Loop, right? Like
Yeah.
he is Bob. The pest control service that I use, whatever it might be called, Mike's Mosquito or whatever, like the
Mhm.
technician that shows up in my house to do the spray, he's Mike. Like even if he isn't actually the Mike's Mosquito
Yeah,
guy,
he
he's him.
still is.
And so I think uh, making finding ways to empower um, your employees, finding ways to empower them, whether it's like through a mustard hub or through training or through equity, finding ways to empower them to go, I'm part of this business, is going to translate to the customer, and the customer being happy with the service, right? So that type of ownership, I think, is a big piece.
You, I think you touch on a huge trending topic right now, especially in HR, right? I mean, those frontline folks are the ones setting the tone. Of any of these organizations that you admire, not just the ones that you've worked with, although I'm sure there are many. Tell me about some of the common traits that stand out maybe in some of the leaders when they really get it right with their people.
Yeah, that's a really good question. That we just got back from a conference last week where the conference was all about how franchises market and create a customer experience. There was a keynote speaker who talked all about how to create super fans, and she brought up this example of Chewy, the pet online
They
food.
do an amazing
Right.
job.
Amazing. And so she brought up this example that she used Chewy for the first time when her dog, she had a rescue dog, and the rescue dog was not digesting any of the food that she was buying. Like there were a lot of stomach problems. And she went to her veterinarian. Veterinarian said, "Hey, I need to give you a special type of food for your dog that's only available per prescription. I have to write that prescription for you. You can go to somewhere like Chewy to get this filled out, blah, blah, blah." And so she went to Chewy, sent in a message and said, "Hey, here's this number for a prescription, you know, thank you." Just a real quick message to Chewy. She gets this like really long email back, and she shared it in the presentation where the Chewy person like made it super personal. Like she says the dog, I think the dog's name was Bear. She was like, "Bear, oh, so sorry to hear that Bear's having a hard time. I've had several dogs that have really enjoyed this food. It's really great, blah, 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 blah." And then she used a bunch of like dog puns. It was like we're all paws here at Chewy or something. I can't remember the dumb ones they did, but it like totally overwhelmed her as a customer. Like she was thrilled, and she sends, and you normally wouldn't send something back, but she was like, "Oh, that's really great. Me and Bear are really appreciative." And then another email comes back, and like another long email with like, "Hey, this is what we're all about here at Chewy. This type of customer service, blah blah blah." Another dog pun. It was like awesome. And she said that happened, 4 or 5 years ago. She's now like a super loyal Chewy customer. And since she's kind of a public speaker, she gets a lot of people. She tells the story a lot of times, and a lot of people share their stories with Chewy with her. And Chewy like will send out handwritten letters when a dog or a pet passes away.
Oh yeah.
And I had an experience with Chewy. I came home and I talked to my wife after this conference, and I was reminded of our Chewy experience, which was our dog had an allergy or has an allergy to chicken, and we had bought some stuff from Chewy that was a chicken based kibble, and we learned that he was allergic, and this was not doing good things to his system. So we wrote Chewy back, said, "Hey, is there a refund available?" Refund was there immediately, and they said, "What we would really love is if you could go take this to a shelter."
Shelter. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like I went and took it down to like our local dog shelter the next week. And so like, and I think they sent us like a thank you card later once I confirmed that I'd sent that. I think I had to send a picture and show them that I was dropping it off. And they send like a thank you card saying, we're all about the humane efforts to help dogs, blah, blah, blah. Like such cool experience that, and I think the highlights here are that it's still really personal. And this is coming from a national brand that's playing commercials on mainstream television, right? Like
Yeah.
it's crazy to think like, whoa, Chewy, a big company just wrote me a handwritten letter. Like that's just awesome.
They I mean, not that we have to turn this into an infomercial for Chewy, but I'm definitely a super fan. About 5 years ago, we did have a pet pass away. We got one of those letters. It was impactful, right? So it really sticks with you, and they do an amazing job. Literally a clinic on how to build super fans. I'm curious just to pivot into tech a little bit. I know that Cinch is a tech company, right? And you get a lot of data from your customers, right? And these data sources, right, are coming from a lot of different places. Do you think organizations are making the right choices when selecting the tech and the software that they use? Are there things that these organizations could do differently to better support the data that you're getting, or even to better support their teams? If we sort of, you know, tangentially here, kind of touch on that, the whole people problems kind of things, right? Or at least to increase customer satisfaction, to actually drive results.
My advice is for any company that's looking at their tech stack
Mhm.
is to ensure that this tech stack is as flexible as possible, and that the way that they are communicating with each other, in terms of the integrations, in terms of the data sharing, is as clean as possible. We work in a lot of spaces that have older technologies, that are maybe not as friendly to other technologies plugging into it, and that becomes a real hurdle that we have to jump over,
Yeah.
to do. And so organizations need to be thinking about in 2025, how do I have technology that works seamlessly with each other? And sometimes the answer is there a tool that can replace several tools? But that's not always the answer. And sometimes I think there's this, I kind of compare, and this is maybe not not super nice to say, but when I think about Microsoft, Microsoft has kind of a strategy of, we'll have the second or third best in every category that we play in, right? We have the second or best email service. We've got in Microsoft Office, we've got the second or third best BI tool, and it's like we can kind of have a little bit of a competitor in every space, but we're not the dominant, best in class service. And sometimes I think companies need to make that decision. Do we want to get the best email tool and the best point of sale, or do we want to find a other software that can combine these two, but it won't be as good? So those are some of the real business challenges I think of today when we talk about technologies. Is, do I go out and find the very best in each category that I care about, or is there someone who can provide kind of the second best in everything, or the third best in everything, in all within one, with one service, with one service provider, one technology? And so that's a big challenge, I'd say, for companies that we talk with, is them identifying tech stack. How does it play together? Who's the best choice for us?
That's really good advice. I think that that's actually a really good takeaway for anybody kind of listening to this. A lot of legacy systems struggle with that, right? And I think that it's difficult. It's difficult for a lot of new systems and new technologies, right? When there's so many older ones with siloed data that doesn't communicate or work together so easily. So definitely good advice. Uh, with any of these platforms, um, especially the ones that are producing a lot of data that you're gathering, for example, do you think business leaders are even tracking a lot of the right things? I mean, do you think there's a disconnect between metrics being watched versus ones that would actually impact the business in terms of sales and marketing?
Great question. I think one of our biggest, and not to make this a Cinch infomercial, but
Go
one of
for
our
it.
biggest one of our biggest strengths is our reporting, and reporting around at marketing attribution, which means
Mm,
I send out 500 emails today, and I can do that. There's obviously a ton of email services that can help you send out emails, right?
yeah.
And some of those services will provide you email open rates and click rates and all that stuff, which is all great. And we certainly do that as well. But when you think about a CMO who's got a budget and is trying to figure out what is the ROI that I'm getting on everything that I'm doing, I'm sending text messages with this tool, I'm sending mailers with this tool, I'm sending emails with this tool, I've got this for digital ads. Finding out what your ROI is a big deal. And a lot of the CMOs, a lot of the VP of marketing that we talk to throw their hands up and go, I don't know. I don't know when Gabe came back in, why he came back in. Was it because we sent him an email? Was it because we sent him a text message? Was it because we sent him a mailer? I don't know. And so Cinch has a way to do that, and a calculation that shows, what really affected Gabe and him coming back in to get another service or buy another product. That's a really, really big wish list on a lot of marketers. A really, really high point on a wish list
Yeah.
on a lot of marketers. And I would say also, a lot of marketers don't know that they want it, but once we show it to them, they go, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it would be awesome
I
to
mean,
know."
that's incredibly powerful in and of itself. I mean, that is That's an incredibly powerful selling point. Same question though, but from an HR perspective. I mean, is there a disconnect when it comes to managing folks and solving, people problems in terms of what leaders might watch, metrics versus what matters? Is there, important people signal that organizations need to start surfacing that's overlooked?
Yeah, I mean, I can. I'm not living in the HR world day to day. My quick comment though, just as a consumer, is just as much about making things right when there's a problem. I care about that. But how quickly are you communicating with me as a customer that has specific needs? And that I think is becoming more and more prevalent in the current consumer in 2025 than maybe even just 15 years ago. We want answers and we want them now, right?
Yeah.
And the frustration that, I mean, there's hardly a business that and I'm not a Karen, okay? I'm not always complaining, but there's hardly when I'm needing some love from a business, and you call and you get the waiting music, and you get the press this button to go here and then this button, and can you explain what the problem is? And like, HR perspective, and I guess we're talking more customer service than HR, but
But that's relevant though. I mean, it still
yeah,
applies.
yeah, having a quick response to your customers, and finding ways to make it right quickly, and empowering your frontline folks to do that quickly, uh, is a really big deal for me as a consumer. And again, I'm not like living in the HR world or the customer success
No,
world.
that's
Yeah,
I think that using these real life stories, getting sort of your implicit perspective on people management through the lens of your work actually makes this advice, I think, so accessible. I love that you talk about frontline workers because it's a huge part of what we do, right? That's super meaningful, to us and the types of businesses that we work with. But you brought up an interesting point about how times today are very different from where they were 15 years ago or 25 years ago or 50 years ago, right? I mean, this evolution has been very dramatic, especially recently. Um, but if we even take it further, like, what do you think tomorrow's leaders need to grasp about people, right? The evolving world of work and company culture that a lot of maybe today's leaders are missing, or that today's leaders couldn't even know about.
boy, there's a lot there to think about. When I think about tomorrow's workspace and the the unique challenges that HR folks are going to face, how do you create a culture that makes it still feel like a family, as a business, or at least I guess family is not even actually the right word, a team. When
Yeah.
you've got three people who are working remotely, you've got one guy who's coming in only on Fridays, you've got people who are working on in the same company or even actually in the same team but are on different sides of the building.
Yeah. Or desked and deskless.
Yeah, all these are, really really interesting challenges, and I think about, I'm really interested in, I'm definitely not an expert in, but I'm really interested in uh, some of the mental issues that are unique to this kind of generation of employee. When you think about loneliness, when you think about depression, when you think about anxiety, all of these are trending at such a stark rate in an upwards trajectory. And a struggle for anyone in HR and anyone in management is, how do I fight against this, and what programs, what culture, what policies can I introduce that fight against this, for the simple reason of it's the right thing to do, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
take it very seriously that managers and HR people are actually some of the most important people in your life. Like, it's weird to say. Like, I had a professor in business school who said, you always think about your doctors. Like, it's so important who your doctor is. It's so important who your dentist is. It's so important who your lawyer is. And that's all true. Like, you really want to trust that person. You want to have a good one. But you think
Mhm.
about the effect of your life, the daily effect of your life. Your boss has so much effect on your daily life. Your
Oh,
HR
yeah.
team, your HR policy. If your HR rep or your boss, your manager is bad, that's eating at you every day. If
Every
you
single day.
Every single day, if your company policy doesn't include ways to make you feel like you're part of a team, like it makes you feel like you're something better, makes you feel like you are appreciated, that's eating at you every single day. And I think these challenges are becoming more and more prevalent as we get in a more um, disconnected world, a more online world.
Even to tie it back to what Cinch does, and even using this story about Chewy, Cinch, the whole, I mean, if I was to distill it, in some of my own words, right, a lot of what Cinch does is also really help personalize experiences, right, within, their community or ecosystem of customers and stakeholders, et cetera. I mean, and they do an incredible job of it, right? They use data, right? Data is obviously the backbone of how it all works, right? But the whole idea is we use data, we use information, we create these very personalized customer experiences through that data, and it makes the relationship between the customers and the business very close. I think about the example you use with Chewy and what a remarkable job they do of creating super fans, but it also makes me think like this company made me feel something so strong. Um, it makes me like them. It makes me think I would want to work. They must have an amazing culture. And that's what it makes me think about. And it makes me think, gosh, I would love to work at a place like Chewy, because imagine what that life would be like if this is how they're treating their customers. And in a way, Cinch is giving that also.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about there's also this reward part of your brain that fires off when you are giving somebody something that's showing appreciation, right? Like, just as nice as it is to have somebody say thank you to me, I also
Hmm.
love to say thank you to somebody else. Just as
Yeah.
nice as it is to have somebody laugh at a joke that I say, and sometimes, like, when it's my wife, it's kind of a sympathy laugh, right? But I like to laugh at other people's jokes and, like, maybe even laugh a little bit loud.
Good. I like to. I'm gonna be glad to have you around.
Yeah, yeah. And Chewy's giving its frontline folks, its customer success, customer support folks, they're empowering them to trigger that in their brains. They're empowering them to say,
Yeah.
go write the handwritten letter,
Yeah. I
go
love that.
uh, go use the dog pun in your email. And
Right.
and Cinch is trying to do the similar thing, and is doing the similar thing, where we are saying to the marketing folks of the world, the CMOs and the VP of marketing folks that we work with, use this really flexible tool to target just the right people at just the right time through just the right marketing channel, to give them just the right experience to make them feel uniquely important to you as a customer, and then hopefully, as a byproduct of that, drive more business, drive more retention business.
That's very well put. Um, so, if we were to wrap up on a topic, a business leader comes to you and wants some advice. They're looking to truly get it right when it comes to growing, retaining their own teams, or even taking care of their people. What's the one thing that you tell them, right? If you only had a minute before they walked away.
I would say not everyone wants the same thing, and you have a lot of levers to pull to drive uh, to protect against churn. And obviously, I'm much more on the end customer churn. But if we're talking about employee churn, you've got a lot of levers that you can pull. And the assumption is maybe, oh, we just got to pay them more money, and we don't want to pay them more money. We don't have budget. There's actually a lot more than just that. Can we offer, more sick leave? Can we allow you, every other Friday, 2 hours off early? Can we offer a program like MustardHub where we're giving you meaningful gifts? Like, there's a lot of levers that you have to pull. Don't just default to saying it's all about money, because a lot of your employees, and there's a lot of research behind this. Your employees, it's not money that always is driving protection against churn.
I
So
think that's really good advice. Yeah, no, 100% agreed. Oh, thank you. Thanks for taking the time to join me today, Gabe. This was really great. This was awesome.
yeah, Curtis, it's great talking with you. And like I said, I love the industry that you're in. I love what you're doing. So always happy to support. And anyone out there should be checking out MustardHub.
Appreciate that. So thank you to everybody tuning in to MustardHub Voices Behind the Build. Please be sure to like and share this fireside chat, and be sure to subscribe to our channels. More insights are on the way. You can also visit mustardhub.com to learn more about how we help companies become destinations for workplace happiness and turn culture into a competitive edge. Until next time, thank you.